Okay, so my name is Laura, Laura Perry, and I am here today representing Playboard NI. And basically the topic that we're going to be looking at today is the importance of outdoor play. Now, obviously, this is a topic that has been talked about for a long time. And I do appreciate there probably is a wealth of experience already in the room today, but hopefully you do take away something new. And if not, I think it's always good just to kind of refresh everybody's knowledge on just how important outdoor play is, and of course all of those lovely benefits of it as well. So I'm from Playboard NI, and possibly a lot of you in the room would have heard of us before, but just to give you a little bit of an insight into who we are the lead organisation for children's play in Northern Ireland, and we were established in 1985. We deliver a wide range of play programmes across a wide range of settings, so from schools to councils, communities and wider organisations, and SAC settings as well, so school-age childcare. So overall, we promote and advocate for play as a means of developing physical, mental and emotional health. And we also provide expertise and guidance to the regional and local government as well. Our overall vision is to create a society where the right to play is realised. So as we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of today, I think that really the best place to start is, well, what is play first and foremost? Because play is extremely easy to recognise. If children were outside and they were kicking a ball or they were running around and chasing each other, you would be able to say indefinitely, they're playing. But if somebody said to you, well, what actually is play? How would you define play? That's where it becomes a little bit harder. So the definition that we have for play is, for children, play should be freely chosen because play is personally directed and it's intrinsically motivated. That is, children and young people should be able to determine and control their own play by following their own instincts, ideas and interests in their own way for their own reasons. So essentially what this is telling us is that there is no guidelines for play. There's no right and there's no wrong. Play is very much intrinsic to the player. And we all play from birth right through till old age. We just play in a lot of different ways. So this is where I would like to see if you can engage with me a little bit, because I want to encourage you to reflect upon your own play. So thinking about what you did whenever you were small or even as a teenager, I want you to think specifically about where you were when you were playing. Were you outside? Was that where the majority of your play took place? Or were you more likely to stay inside and play? Who were you with? What kind of things were you doing? What play were you engaging in? And what did you enjoy most about that? So if you don't want to speak to me, or if you don't want to write in the chat function, just reflect to yourself for a little minute. And what I'm going to do to kick you off is just very, very quickly share one of my own play memories, okay? So this is it on the screen. And this is where I would have been growing up. I was a very, very fortunate child in that I didn't grow up in the countryside, but there was a lot of green spaces near me. It was in an estate, but there was a lot of green space. There actually was a woodland area, and me and my sister would have went and we would have played house or mums and dads, and we also made witch's soup, which was very much just from water, leaves, flowers and mud. And there was also a farm nearby, which would have had like things like cows and chickens and things like that, okay, because it was very, very close to like the hillside. So there was some animals, and we weren't really supposed to go near them, but we did anyway. And then the odd time you got a wee chase from the farmer. But that was very much my play whenever I was in primary school. So as I just said, we are seeing a massive change in how children play today, and most importantly, where children play. Generally, whenever I would deliver this face-to-face, at least 90% at least would be that there would be very, very much outdoor play experiences. Very, very similar to my own or what you were describing there as well, which is fantastic. But unfortunately, play today, it's very much an indoor thing. Kids don't particularly like playing in the elements, and what they're choosing to do is to play with screens, so their tablets or watch TV or their Xbox or their phones. That seems to be the play preference in 2014, and we have been heading in this direction for quite a while. So but because children and young people are missing out on a lot more outdoor play than what possibly we as adults would have experienced, we're now looking at what's called play deprivation. Okay, children are missing out on a lot of their key milestones or key childhood experiences that help them to hit milestones and to develop well, and that's all because they're missing out on a lot of the key skills that the outdoor environment promotes. So as I said, a massive decrease in outdoor play. So compared to previous generations, children's lives have become incredibly restricted. They're taking place a lot more indoors, isolated, away from their friends, and inactive. And this is largely due to changes in the outdoor environment, okay? So this is just some of the factors that may give us a little bit of indication as to why we're seeing this decrease. So first and foremost, over the recent years, we are seeing a high volume of traffic on the roads. And I'm a parent myself, and I live in an estate and where there is a very, very busy main road outside. And I do get that fear of, well, what if a car flies up the road and one of my girls get too excited and they run out and all of a sudden they're hit? There's always going to be that fear factor, because as parents, as practitioners that work with children, our duty is to keep these children safe. So that is obviously a massive implication. But what I would say is that my daughter has just turned 5 in August. And over the summer, I did allow her outside to play because there is grassy areas, but yes, there is a main road. And for a while, I was that helicopter parent, I suppose, that sat on a deck chair outside on the road and probably looked a bit silly, but to make sure that she was using the road correctly and she was keeping herself safe. But even at just the age of 5, I could already see that she was using the Green Cross Road. She was looking and watching for traffic. She was waiting until the cars passed, and she was managing that risk really, really well. So she was able to show me she had those skills even from the age of 5. Another factor is the low quality housing layout. So a lot of housing estates that are built nowadays in these larger developments, yes, they're fantastic houses, but they don't have any green spaces within that complex or even near to them. It seems to be that when there is a green space, houses are built there instead. So because of that, there is a lack of parks and green spaces, again, because the houses are taking up those spaces. There's also, in recent years, this massive focus on academic achievement. There's this massive amount of pressure put on our children and young people to achieve a certain grade, I suppose, to get into grammar schools, to get good jobs at the end of it. And yes, academic achievement is important, but so is the mental health and well-being and physical development of our children. And most importantly, they are children, so that they should have access just to this environment where they can have fun, as well as obviously their academic side of things too. As I said as well, screen time has massively kind of rocketed over recent years as well. There's so many different forms of technology these days, and that is becoming very, very much the play preference. My own kind of take on that is because of this massive hit of dopamine that the kids are receiving when they play games or when they scroll through social media or TikTok or anything to that effect. That dopamine essentially is like a pleasurable hormone that they keep wanting more and more and more of. So essentially that's why they're choosing that type of play. It's also very accessible for them as well. Doesn't matter what the weather is. And technically they are being social sometimes if they are like chatting to their other friends or playing against their friends, but it's not in the same way. It's lacking that face-to-face element. There's also a lot of children that after school are going to a lot of like extra curricular activities, things like sports or youth clubs, and again, fantastic in their own right, but they're very much adult-led activities. And unless it is a sport thing, it might not take place outside the way like typical free play outdoor play would be. So again, that the sport or adult activities could be missing that crucial element. And then racial inequality as well. So evidence shows that the physical and mental health of children and young people was in serious long-term decline. And there is also evidence to suggest that girls spend less time outdoors than boys. And this is probably, again, something that we've been catching on to for a brave while. Probably through all the stereotypical play that we are expecting girls to do, maybe perhaps less likely to engage in sports or less likely to get messy. But again, this isn't obviously a one-size-fits-all. Some girls do enjoy that type of play, but that stereotype may be one reason as to why. But again, we are going to investigate this further today. The sad reality, though, of this lack of outdoor play or this play deprivation is that children are now spending less time outdoors than prison inmates. So there was a piece of research that was carried out by Edelman Intelligence in which 12,000 parents were interviewed from across 10 countries around the world, okay? So this isn't specific to the UK, but as a global piece of research, okay? And it found that 1 in 3 children within the UK spent less than 30 minutes each day playing outside. Less than 30 minutes. And most likely that 30 minutes may have taken place in school. So that would have been it would have took place within the playground. And then once they get home, they probably would have just stayed indoors after that. 1 in 5 children did not play outside at all. Okay. Prison inmates get 1 hour per day of that outdoor time, okay? And if you're interested in this subject, I really encourage you to go on to the Edelman Intelligence Free the Kids website to watch the video, because the inmates start telling you all about how important this outdoor time is to them and how if they don't get it, it affects their mood. And when you actually translate that over to children, it actually makes complete sense why we're seeing the behaviors that we do, both inside the home and at school. Okay, so 74% of those children spend less time outside than prisoners. Like, that is quite shocking. And just to give you some more stats in relation to this research, 78% of parents admitted that their child refuses to play if it doesn't involve a piece of technology. Okay. A further 80% reported that their child prefers virtual sports than actually engaging in real life sports. And again, it's quite sad. Okay, so into the benefits now. This is why we should be encouraging, I suppose, outdoor play and promoting opportunities to play outside as much as we can. Playing outdoors does allow children to encounter many opportunities for development, for growth and for learning. It's physical fitness. It helps prevent childhood obesity. It has lots of physical benefits like the development of coordination, gross motor strength, agility and stamina. It builds self-confidence, it promotes independence, and that promotes self-esteem. And it's also that social aspect as well. Learning how to cooperate with others, how to communicate with others, how to problem solve. And overall, this increases the child's resilience levels. It is recommended that children and young people from the age of 4 to 18 years of age engage in that 60 minutes of vigorous activity per day. So that's basically any type of activity that makes their heart race, okay? And based on the stats that we just saw a wee second ago, 74% of children, young people and in the UK are not getting their total of 60 minutes. So just to kind of mention, obviously, our SEN children as well, outdoor play is just as beneficial for them. It's having that freedom to move in a therapeutic and stimulating outdoor environment, which makes for healthier and happier children. It does teach essential life skills, it boosts their confidence and it improves their overall behaviour. Early years providers that connect children with nature and encourage outdoor play through creative outdoor play environments will truly support development and promote well-being for all the children in their care, but especially for children with SEN and who maybe do just need that little bit of extra support in meeting their milestones or in being social and things like that. So some other benefits then include it helps being outdoors, allows children to experience the natural world. It's a very, very diverse environment outside. The outdoor environment offers so much more than what an indoor space can. There's always going to be like natural kind of dips and slopes and holes and things to climb in the outdoor environment compared to that of inside. And this is just ultimately teaching children all about the world around them, what way the world works. It promotes obviously their physical development, but perhaps most importantly as well, it does improve their mental health as well. And this is something that we sometimes forget about when it comes to being outside. It's not just about the physical. If you reflect on COVID times when we were all restricted from going outside, and eventually we were allocated, I think it was 30 minutes or 1 hour per day of being outdoors, we all craved that time. And think about how much better that made you feel when you did go out in the fresh air for that. Got to go a walk or you got to go a run. It had a really positive impact on all of our mental health during what was very much a stressful time. And children do experience a lot of stress, whether that's at home or whether that's in school with the obviously academic pressure. So if there is something that they're going through, being outside in that outdoor environment, experiencing vitamin D, the sunshine, getting that hit of dopamine and serotonin, all those lovely happy hormones, all that is going to help relieve stress and make them feel happier. And it's not just fun. It's not just for children. It's fun for everybody, okay? Including us as adults. It is important that we all get outside and that we do all have fun and play in whatever way playing looks for you. So yes, even more benefits then. When children are outside, they tend to move more, meaning they sit less and they play for longer. A child that is playing on the floor in the house, that play may last a long time, but that play, if you moved it outside, would typically last a lot longer, and there would be a lot more play value to their play because of the added element of the elements of the wind, of the rain, of the natural kind of things around us as well, like the soil, the leaves, the sticks. My wee girl just loves a stick. The enjoyment that she gets out of a stick is not normal. It boosts her imagination and creativity. And as I said, she plays for such a long time outside as a result. So when kids are outside, they learn to balance risky play and their own safety. It encourages a healthy lifestyle that then obviously the children their blood pressure improves, their cardiorespiratory and their musculoskeletal fitness overall improves as well, okay? So we're thinking about the mental health, but also the physical benefits. Being outside, it also helps children to increase their own levels of resilience, okay? It helps them to self-regulate and to manage stress. So just kind of moving on, kind of getting more out of the resilience side of things in terms of outdoor play, there was a kind of misconception that resilience is something that we're born with. And there may be an element of truth to that in terms of things like our parents and how active and supportive they are, or our existing mental health and factors like that. But the truth is, we're learning that resilience, much like a muscle, can actually be strengthened and built upon through having positive people in our lives and through getting the opportunities to build that resilience. So obviously today we're here to talk about outdoor play, and the outdoor environment is definitely one of the most effective environments to support the growth of resilience. And that's because the outdoor environment helps to build confidence and self-esteem. It does give a lot more opportunities to experience natural risk and challenges and to learn how to manage that risk, just like my little girl, and she learned how to cross the road safely simply by playing with her friends. It helps children to build relationships with others as well, because whenever children are outside, they just get this innate desire to move and to be playful with other kids. So from that playfulness then comes communication skills and problem solving skills, and helps them to make healthy friendships. And when children are outside, they also experience a wide range of emotions, which helps them to learn how to self-regulate those emotions. It also helps them to be independent, because when they're outside, it probably is less likely that there is an adult there to help them. And it gives them a sense of control of their world in what is very much still a very, very adult-led society. And most of all, it helps them work through difficulties as well. So outdoor environment is the best place to give children the time, space, and permission to play. Just like you can see in the pictures here, there's so much fun to be had in the outdoor environment. It's the best play for physical play. Like I just said, when children are outside, they do this innate desire, this need, this want to run about and to jump and to skip. And that's even without the added resources and things like that. They just very, very naturally begin to run, which in itself is just so much fun, isn't it? So all of the pictures that you're seeing on the screen now and throughout the presentation are pictures that Playboard have taken over recent years. There's a few old ones scattered in there, and we kept them just because they're really good. But these are taken from a lot of the programs that we have been running recently. Oh. The outdoor environment is also the best place to get messy. And let's face it, whether you're here as a parent today or as a practitioner, being the adult, it is us that is left to clear up the mess 9 times out of 10, unless you're very, very good and you do obviously encourage the children to get involved and that tidy up. But when we're outside, it's generally easier to tidy up that mess. So that's a benefit for us as the adults, because you can get the power hose out or the big scrubbing brush, the garden brush, or you can just kind of turf dirt into more dirt or something like that. It generally is a lot easier, and the kids feel in that environment that they just have so much more freedom to get messy themselves. There isn't as much of, oh, I've got dirty hands, or oh, my clothes got dirty, or look, a bit dropped on the floor, because you're outside and it doesn't matter. So it really does scream to the children, you have permission to play here and to get as messy as you can and to have fun. The outdoor environment is also the best place to experience the elements, obviously, like the rain, like the snow, like the hail, anything like that. And in Playboard and I, we like to say that there's no such thing as bad weather, just inappropriate clothing. And listen, hands up, I don't always practice what I preach. I hate the rain. I can take any other type of weather, but I am not a fan of the rain. And there is that temptation with my own little girl to, when the rain starts, to get back inside. But I want to kind of lead by example. So I just make sure she has her raincoat on and her welly boots handy, and then we can enjoy the park or the woods and just splash in puddles, and that adds a little bit of fun to it as well. So as you can see here through one of our programs, in the middle picture, we were using a mud kitchen anyway, but with the rain, it got even more muddier, and the kids just loved that. The outdoor environment is also the best place to support different play preferences. So like we learned earlier with girls, there is a stereotype there that is saying that girls spend less time outside. And maybe that is because intrinsically sometimes girls are more drawn to things like arts and crafts, or playing with dollies, or dressing up. But that's not to say that all of those things that are typically indoor activities can't be taken outside. And that's exactly, again, what we've done with our play program. We introduce like mud kitchens in place of plastic or wooden kitchens inside, and they play with mud and stones rather than plastic or wooden food. We have up our dressing up clothes over trees or over apparatus, or with using clothes pegs. The kids make dens outside. In terms of children that love to be creative, they get creative with natural resources, or what we do is we get a massive roll of wallpaper and we weigh it down with stones or rocks, and then the children can still draw. So lots and lots of different ideas. It's also the best place, sorry, I'm flicking on, the best place to experience risky play, okay? Apologies, guys. Simply because of what I've already said, in that the outdoor environment has so much more opportunities to engage in risk than the indoor environment would, okay? So let's think now about populating an outdoor play environment. Like I just said a wee second ago, children will very, very naturally play outside, regardless of what is, it could be an empty space and they'll just run about like mad, which is brilliant. But loose parts is something that we really, really advocate for in Playboard and I, simply because they're so free flowing and the children can do whatever they want with them. They promote creativity and imagination, and there is no set of rules or instructions, which is fantastic. So loose parts may look like natural resources like leaves, pine cones, shells. It could be building materials and tools if you're feeling very brave and really want to promote that risky play. It could be big scrap materials like you're going to see in seconds in some of our pictures. Things like tires, pallets, tubing, cloth. And then house scrap materials as well. So get out your metal saucepans, egg boxes, dressing up clothes, and doesn't matter if they're typically found inside, get them outside. And what you'll see is that children just use them in so many more interesting and exciting ways. So this is the kind of picture to sum up the difference in what manufactured toys bring to children compared to loose parts. So this is my colleague's little boy, and he got this lovely car for Christmas, and I am not negating that car is probably a lot of fun and he just loved it. But look at his face whenever he got inside the cardboard box. That was the box that that car came in, okay? That box could become whatever he wanted it to be. That car, though, could only really be a car or another vehicle. Yeah? The box could be a vehicle, or it could have been a tunnel, or it could have been a den, or it could have been a time machine, a rocket, anything like that. So the benefits then of, why does it keep doing that? Of loose part play are that it encourages creativity and imagination. It helps children to cooperatively play and socialize more. So I'm not going to keep on flicking that back because it's really frustrating. It keeps jumping on me. But I'll just tell you a very, very quick story about loose parts. I run a play program where I go into primary schools with 4 to 11 years of age children, and we bring things like sand, soil for mud kitchens, we bring Play-Doh, we bring arts and crafts. But the most popular thing every single time is our loose parts box. And we go to Play Resource, even if you're from a different city or country here today, I'm sure you'll have the equivalent where you can go and basically get lots and lots of junk art. It's the most popular resource every single time. And the children always want it back, and they every single week, we're there for 5 weeks in total, they want this brought back every single time. And what we see is that their creations get bigger, they get better, and their resilience levels really, really increase. So on week 1, we might have saw that a child was trying to tape like maybe 2 items together using masking tape, and they could not get that to work. They could not get it to stick, or they couldn't get the masking tape cut or something to that effect. And we would have saw a lot of things like, not a temper tantrum, but like them getting very frustrated and very, very angry. And they might have temporarily walked away from their creation and calmed themselves down, then come back again. But what we saw over those 5 weeks was this real progression in that resilience levels increased. They kept on trying, got this thing to stick, their creation was built, or that their friends were actually jumping in to help them. So they were holding the masking tape while the other person used the scissors to cut it, or they were holding the 2 pieces of junk art together. So again, their friend could wrap around the masking tape to get it to stick. So all those lovely cooperation skills and communication skills were being developed as well. It was definitely the most beneficial resource, and let's face it, it didn't cost us anything. Of loose parts, one man's junk and thinking that it may just be mess or it may just be rubbish is really another man's treasure. Look at all those lovely benefits that loose parts play promotes to children. So many. So yeah, just quickly, just your slides there, that's your loose parts in action. That's really, really big loose parts. Apologies. This is it's really is the best type of resource for extending play as well. So yes, a child might play. If you look at your top left hand picture, this is a dinosaur land, and yes, children will enjoy playing with dinosaurs inside. But what about when you take them outside and you put dinosaurs in their real life habitat with gravel, with grass, with flowers and trees? That's going to extend that play and make it a whole lot more fun and exciting and make it last longer. When you're outside in your den building, you've just got so much more space, and you can use the natural environment like the trees and bushes to kind of become your den as well. If you're playing with cars, why just stop there? Again, get them into the gravel, get them onto the grass, or add that lovely tubing that then gives that children that trajectory type play where it's picking up speed and you're learning about all the different gradients and height levels and things like that. Loose parts are also the best resources to promote imagination. So as you can see in the middle, this once was cardboard boxes and masking tape. It's now a full body robot. We then also see lots of vehicles for some reason when we bring out the loose parts, and they just take lots of different shapes. It's also the best place for children to make noise. When children are outside and if they're engaging with loose parts, they don't feel as if they have to use your indoor voices or be afraid of making too much noise in the classroom or at home. Outside, they typically can be as noisy as they want. And as you can see in terms of loose parts, for these girls, they're using old pots and pans and wooden spoons, and that is their drum kit. And that was all they needed. They just loved it. So you'll be glad to hear that is me finishing off, okay? So my take-home messages that I hope that you take away from today are to give children the time, space, and permission to play outside as much as possible. In terms of giving children the time to play outside, we're giving them that free time where they could be unsupervised. That doesn't mean that you disappear completely, but that you don't take over the play. You stand back and you watch them and you see what they do with that time. Giving children the time to be bored as well. Boredom simply promotes imagination and curiosity and creativity. Give them the time to find things out and also to make and maintain friendships. In terms of space, this is your outdoor environment. As we've just seen through our pictures and through everything we've been talking about today, the outdoor environment is the most exciting and fun place to be. And then obviously you have the added benefit of all the physical benefits and the mental health benefits as well. It is a very, very diverse play environment, as I said earlier, in terms of gross motor development, fine motor development, agility, coordination. The outside space is the best place to learn those skills. Think about your access to resources as well. Do you have anywhere that you could go to collect like junk art effectively? Or is it something that you as a parent could gather up instead of putting it in your recycling box? Or could your family to help you with it? You're also thinking about natural and man-made resources as well, and which one holds the most play value. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, give children this real sense of permission to play, particularly playing outside, without being scolded. Oh no, you can't do that, you'll hurt yourself. Stand back and let them see what they'll do with it. The same way with my 5-year-old, I was really frightened, and which is why I sat with my deck chair watching her playing in the street, and then eventually I could see that she was able to cross the road safely on her own. I give her that opportunity. It's also helping them to test boundaries, but giving them permission to make mess. Because outside they feel as if they can do that more, and it's not going to be as much as a hindrance. To make lots of noise, to make their own decisions, and to really take control of their own play. But most of all, give them permission to have fun. So that really is me today. Guys, I hope that you got something from that, or that you enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
So hi everyone, my name's Kate. I've been working outside with children for about 30 years. I started as a volunteer countryside ranger. Then I worked in outdoor education. Then I taught. Then I became an education consultant, and I've been an education consultant for about 17 years. I started or helped start the first outdoor nursery in Scotland. And then we opened the second outdoor nursery in Scotland. So I helped manage those and run those. But my main job was training and coaching and coming into other settings and helping staff get people outside. So the remit was talk about the outdoors, which is massive. And in half an hour. So I saw what the guys in Northern Ireland were going to do, loose parts and things like that, and benefits. So I thought to complement that, and also something I feel quite strongly about, is we'd have a very quick chat about landscapes that are useful for children and useful for learning, and also benefit risk assessment, also known as BRA. I can't see you guys now because I've gone through full screen, but can you all hear me? Is that okay?
Yes, we can hear
Brilliant.
you clearly.
Okay, right, I'll carry on chatting. If anyone's got a question, you'll have to just shout at me because I can't see the chat, but I will flick back to the chat at the end. So if you're shy, you can type into the chat as we go, but I'll whiz through this and then we can have some decent conversation, hopefully, for a few minutes. So yeah, what makes a good learning landscape? So I'm not a landscape architect. However, for a number of years, having worked as a consultant, I do a lot of advisory work about landscapes. And a few of the shots that I'm going to show you are from one of my long-term projects. So I've worked for about 18 years in the International School of Düsseldorf. Luckily, their common language is English, which I'm relieved by because my German is terrible. There's actually 27 nationalities in the school. We have slowly over the years got everyone outside. So now we have outdoor classrooms for all year groups, and the teachers rotate round taking their classes outdoors. And the children, as I believe, have built their outdoor learning spaces. So we're just going to whiz through some useful things, some easy things we can do to make learning a little bit better in terms of landscape. And you don't need Shangri-La. A lot of people think, oh my goodness, I need like a forest over there and a river over there. You don't need that at all. So there's three basic things we need. Okay. So the first thing is at least two surfaces in our outdoor space for whatever age group. So this is an example from Düsseldorf. So the children didn't actually lift those massive logs. We got cranes in to do that. But they did help fill the different spaces, and we voted over what should go in these spaces. So this is the playground for the 4 and 5-year-olds. And so we've got a stick pile, we've got large stones, we've got small gravel, and we've got two lots of sand because we found that the children wanted to move the sand a lot. So we basically had two areas that we could dig it and then move it to that space and then move it back. Luckily, we have quite a few children that like to sort the stuff out, so the staff don't really have to do it too often. And equally at the top there, we've got a fake fire that they've combined some of these loose parts. So it fits in lovely with what we were just saying about the amazing learning capabilities of having loose parts. But if we've got at least two different surfaces, huge amounts of curriculum can be covered, and also really helps with our gross motor skills and our fine motor skills, proprioception and balance, if we've got different surfaces that we can walk upon and climb about on, in terms of our milestones and sort of developmental stuff for a younger age group. If you can't have this because you're sharing space or you don't own your own space, because I work in a lot of places, probably the worst landscape I ever helped to design, what I won't name the town, it was in Scotland, but it was on the 5th floor of a shopping centre, and their outdoor space was the roof, and there was a dual carriageway that went underneath that shopping centre. So initially the children quite enjoyed throwing things over to see what happened to the cars. So we very quickly changed the fact they couldn't see the cars anymore by putting some plywood up. Also helped with the wind effect. So that you probably aren't in the most challenging place that I've ever seen. That one was quite challenging, and a couple of places in Mumbai where I worked were quite challenging. Anyway, so If you don't have that, the alternative to allow yourself to have a few different surfaces is this, or something very similar. I'm sure many of you have this in your settings, a tuff tray. Tuff trays are amazing. They're black, so whatever you put on it draws your eye to it, because a lot of people, you know, if you get something on your black trousers, people often say you've just got something on there, because it really draws your eye to what you're putting into it, because your eyes are not distracted by the background. They're focusing on what you've put into that space. So then into your tuff trays or similar sort of thing, you can put your surface for the day. So you put some stones in, put it back in a bag, put some sticks in, put it back in a bag, put some water in, pour that away. Sometimes go crazy, sticks and stones, amazing. And it allows children to either fully engage by getting right into it and standing in it, or they can work on the periphery and use those resources and explore those resources. So that's the first thing we want, is at least 2 different surfaces, and that can be on a permanent basis like that, or it can be on a temporary basis, a bit like that. The second thing that all children love, and we can do this in various different ways, is to have a sort of enclosure or boundary. So sometimes we have boundaries and enclosures to stop children going other places, like that fence along the back there. They aren't the best learning environments. It's really nice to have an enclosure or a boundary that children can get either side of without us policing them. So this is in the school that I've just arrived from. Sorry, I was late. I was teaching. So I'm the outdoor learning teacher there. So we were doing some map stuff today and looking at Google Earth and bits like that. So this is in their school, and the children, obviously it's primary as well as nursery class. So I rotate around the classes. So all of the children did different bits and pieces to be involved in building this lovely hurdle fence. So this is on the permanent basis, obviously. So you basically bash some stakes in, or get some pretty thick bits of willow if you've got access to willow. That's our willow structure behind that we chopped it all down from. And then you weave it in and out, in and out and out, and then out and in, out and in, out and in and out and in and out, and bash it down, and then do more. And then you get a lovely little fence that people can get either side of. If you don't want it on a permanent basis, you can always make mini ones, as is demonstrated in that little photo there. Mini boundaries that we can put little things either side of, so we can always go on a miniature scale with things. Or we can do a temporary version of enclosure and boundary by having various different things that we can move around. So we might have some cones and some things, or we might have a chain. Equally, I find if you've got some tarmac, children often like getting a bit short and drawing boundaries and saying to you, all right, don't go over that boundary. And then obviously you can step over it, and they go, right, okay, don't go over this boundary. It also helps you, if you have grass, bring some of the grass back. So for periods of time, we can cordon off little areas and let our grass recover from being mud. And then we can move that boundary around about. The benefit of boundaries, really good for a lot of children in terms of schematic interests, boundary and enclosure, and also really good for social skills, either side, really good for positional language, and also just a bit of reassurance. If you've got a massive space, sometimes, especially for very small people, it's really quite overwhelming. It's like a massive space. Oh God, let's go out into this space. You go, well, that's massive. I don't really know what to do here. Massive playground, massive playing field. Whereas if you can break it up a little bit with some temporary or permanent boundaries, you start having slightly cozy spaces, like Elizabeth talks about, cozy corners, cozy environments indoors. You can create that outdoors with some temporary or permanent boundaries of some sort. So that's number 2. So we've got different surfaces, a couple of boundaries we can get either side of. The other thing that children love, actually, related to boundaries, and often I've done this in a few settings that I've worked in. So I've often put in a stile or a gate with absolutely nothing else either side of it. And it's amazing how all humans, including adults, as soon as you see a gate, you go, oh, that's really interesting, I'll go through that. So there's no fence either side. We just put a gate in, and the children would love to go open the gate, close the gate, open the gate, close the gate. We can walk around the outside. That doesn't really matter. I'm just enjoying going through the gate. So all those sorts of ways of getting between the boundaries are also quite fascinating and useful for children to explore. And then finally, third thing we all need, which I kind of heard a little bit of chat about as well earlier on, is a little bit of slope, undulation, height and depth. So most human beings are not that fussed about completely flat surfaces. They're like, yeah, it's a bit boring. So it's great if we can create a little bit of height, slope and gradient. So this is ISD. The children built this with the staff. So this is the mini mountain. It took us about a year to build because we were doing our learning and then we were sometimes moving some soil. So at the back, I don't know if you can see that, but at the back there's a big stone pit and there's a big sand pit. So we dug all the mud out of the stone pit and the sand pit with a bit of help from some adults to break it up a little bit. And we moved it and we've made a massive pile of soil, and then we stepped on it and padded it down. This is probably at the end of maybe the first, maybe a year and a half in. So we started to plant some foliage. And now you can hardly see it because it's completely covered in. This whole area, by the way, used to just be a bit of grass that they weren't allowed on because you might get muddy. And then we changed it into the outdoor classroom. This is the outdoor classroom for the 5 and 6 year olds. So if you don't want to have on a very permanent basis, because you haven't got time to build a mini mountain in your grounds, any way of creating slope and gradient. So a little log slide that I can stand up on, or my personal favorite is guttering and pipes. Never ever fix your guttering and pipes on a permanent basis to the fence. After the second go, all children will go, well, it always comes out there, and they'll probably stop playing with it. So what you need to do is learn how to do a lark's foot, which these guys in primary 1 are doing. So you basically get a loop of string and you post it through and then flick it through, and then you end up with your lark's foot there, and then you can hang your guttering it anywhere and make it run all the way along the fence. Or obviously this is a slightly more technical level. If you've got 2-year-olds, we often start on the ground and then we just find things to raise it up a little bit. So they might find a stick or a bucket, so we can raise it up a little bit on the ground, and then we can explore that slope and gradient that really fascinates most human beings. So yeah, that's the third thing. So I don't know, we'll look in the chat, but if you guys want to type anything about slopes and gradients, that'd be really good. And then I'm going to whiz through very quickly. Oh, and shelter. I apologize. The last thing, living in Scotland, it's always handy to have a little bit of shelter of some sort. So that can be permanent, semi-permanent. This is my outdoor classroom. So it's a semi-permanent structure. So I basically hook up the tarp every time we're outside. Or you can go on a temporary basis, and this is a teepee style made from a parachute. So you basically do a clay hitch over a handy object, throw the rope over a tree, hoist it up and tie it off. This was a project in Glasgow I was doing with the after school club. So this was about 6 o'clock at night. So it's starting to get dusk. So you get that lovely, they've got a light inside there, so you can see all their shadows coming through. So that was quite nice. So building dens and shelters. I often spend my life building dens and shelters with children. Really brilliant way to create a bit of shelter. Meets Maslow's physiological needs baseline, and then we can progress up through Maslow to get to self-actualization, which everyone wants to hit. So having that sort of thing is really handy. So you need surfaces, you need boundaries you can get either side of, you need slope and gradient, and then somewhere in amongst all that stuff, it's quite handy to have a temporary or permanent shelter that you can get in. Mainly in Scotland, it's usually the wind that gets us more than the rain, to be honest. But having a little bit of a break is always good. And involve the children in that. So if you've got, I usually put some props and photographs into a bag or something, and then I'll pull them out, and children that are choosing not to speak can go, they don't touch it. well, they won't, or if they love it, they won't pass it on. They won't pass it on. They want to hold on to it. So you can get an indication of how interested children are in different surfaces and different objects by the way they react to the object. Holding on to it, I really quite like this, quite interested, not even wanting to touch it or passing it on really quick. I'm not that bothered by it. And then we can pick up on different surfaces we might choose, different boundaries we might want to have, different flora and fauna we might want, and that slope and gradient, and help us design a space. So I don't think I'm going to get to talk. Well, we'll see. I'll just do this bit and then you can let me know if I can carry on and chat about benefit risk assessment very quickly. So this is the grounds of ISD, just as an example. So we now have all these outdoor spaces. We've got the red zone, that's for 2 to 3 year olds. Then we've got the 3 to 4 year olds, 4, 5s, and then we've got upper school, which is everybody else at the end. And it's a very urban site. The tram line goes through there, and every 4 minutes you have to pause because the tram goes past. And this is one of the main arterial roads into Düsseldorf. So we started off with that, just a bit of grass. And now I've taken a Google Earth photo of what it looks like now. So the children, that's that central space. That's the place. That grassy bit is actually now like that bit. That's the middle of the quadrant there. And then you can kind of see another one of the outdoor spaces and a small bit of the 3 and 4 year old garden, but you can't make out that too well. And then this one with the circular planted hedge, that's the older children's outdoor space. So they've all helped and helped create and build these spaces that they use for learning. And in my mind, that kind of makes children want to go outside, and also engages them. They feel a connection to it, and therefore often want to spend a bit more time in it rather than something that someone else has built or created. So yeah, going from that to that, with the children making things. On a temporary basis, also thinking a bit more about shelters. Signage, again, helps with connection. Children can do arrows or mark mate in their own way, and you put up signs or label things. This is the singing tree. This is the sitting bench. And then we can move around these spaces so children can create ways they want to take you on a tour of the space. Children often love to do that. And boundaries don't need to be permanent. So here we've got lots of different surfaces. And if I want people to gather around, I might sprinkle some flour, and we could sit around the edge of the flour. It's biodegradable, washes away. And very hard for children to fall over flour. I have seen children fall over ropes quite often, but often they won't fall over flour. So that's quite a good one. Right. Do you want me to stop? How long have we got? It's 5 o'clock. Are we meant to stop?
We've got until 5:30.
Oh, right. Okay. So keep going for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Okay. If that's all right with everyone. So I'll do a tiny bit on risk. And then obviously you guys can ask questions because I can whiz back and read all the comments, and you can turn on your mics and things. So I think there's already been a little bit of mention around risk, and taking risks and measured risks. So these are some of the major benefits of children risk assessing for themselves. So first of all, obviously helps them detect what's out there, and anything that might cause a hazard, which might lead to a bit of a risk. Once they know what's out there, what I find, in nursery, we read all these horror stories to children. So we're going on a bear hunt. Going to be bears out there. It's going to be quite scary. Then we've got the Gruffalo going on, all this stuff that's happening, and then we say, right, we're going to go outside. And if children haven't been out that much, they go, is the Gruffalo going to be there, or like a bear or something? I don't know what's going on. So once we make children aware of what's out there, that then raises their self-esteem. Once they realize I can risk assess and keep myself safe, again raising their self-esteem. When children are moving around different surfaces, learning how to cope in these spaces, it massively increases their motor skills. Around risk, you might also start using tools, all that sort of thing, getting into fire. That's a conversation for another time if you want to talk to me about that. And also improving social behavior, because once we start to be able to self-regulate, and stop ourselves hurting ourselves and leading to potentially hurting other people, that massively improves our social behavior. Realize we get more friends, and we can spend more time with other people when we're a bit more risk aware and not creating situations that might be hazardous for ourselves or other people. Also, alongside that, it helps with a bit of conflict resolution as well, and massively leads to a bit more independence, because once I know what's out there and how I'm going to stay safe, that makes me feel a bit better about what's going on, and we can move on. So in the last bit, we were talking a little bit about landscape, and a sense of belonging, and the fact that shelter is a physiological need, and then the next level up in Maslow is feeling safe. So being able to make ourselves feel safe then will allow us to go to the next level, which is self-esteem, and then finally get to self-actualization, which is kind of where I'm feeling great. I want to learn even more about this stuff. I can even show my friends how to do this because I'm feeling so great about it. But if at any point we kind of knock out one of the lower, I often talk about a brick wall with Maslow. If we knock out one of the lower bricks, like something happens, I'm not quite sure why that happens, or we haven't got a shelter and now I'm getting soaking wet, then we're never going to learn and get to the top of self-actualization, because we'll be thinking my feet are wet, which nobody really likes. Okay, so a tiny bit of research. If you want to get into this, probably the best person, she's done huge amounts of research, Scandinavian lady called Sancester. And with colleagues, they came up with the 6 main categories of risk that occur. I have put brackets around the adjective because I hate these adjectives. It leads to negativity. So I tend to kind of just talk about the things rather than using the adjectives. So exploring and playing with height. As we've just mentioned, slope and gradient is a major draw in terms of landscape. So be able to explore and look at different heights, be at different heights to a safe level, is a great thing, and often a big attraction in terms of people that want to explore risk. Playing at speed doesn't need to be high. Some of us quite like going slowly, and we can vary our speed. We can go a bit fast and then slow down. So we might be doing that on foot, or we might be getting on a bike or a tricycle to explore speed. But again, a big draw for human beings is looking at speed. Next is playing with tools. I would never allow children to do something that's harmful with a tool, so I don't even know why we've got that there. But using real, I don't use fake tools, but using real tools with children, it can be a risk, but being able to understand that risk and explore it and use those tools to achieve things. And a tool is anything, and a tool is something that aids progress. So a pen is a tool, or a spoon is a tool. It doesn't have to get into sort of carpentry type tools, hand tools, too much. If you want to think about tools, a pair of scissors, that's a tool. Playing near, get rid of dangerous elements. So again, we've just been mentioning the elements are a great draw to the outdoors. So some of us are water people. I'm a water person. Absolutely love any type of water or water experience, including rain. Quite like the rain. Some people are drawn to fire, which also is connected to a bit of warmth or variation in temperature. We're quite fascinated by slightly cold, slightly warm things, and also light variation is linked to that element as well. So bright, dark, color spectrum, all that sort of stuff. Air, one of the harder ones because it's hard to see. So usually it's the effects of air on other things, but also we might have that sensorial experience of air. And then earth, which is massive. So all the elements that are out there, flora, fauna, stone, metal, etc., man-made created items. We'll be quite fascinated by all those different things and exploring those different things. Then we've got rough and tumble, which thank goodness has not got an adjective. This comes from Hughes Play Types, and these guys added it to risk. This is a natural behavior, a very positive behavior. As long as everyone that's engaged in the rough and tumble is happy and content in exploring that and experiencing that, it's really good for exploring social interaction, resilience, etc. Helps stop anxiety and many other things if we have a little bit of rough and tumble in our lives. But everyone needs to be happy about what we're doing. If someone's not happy, we have to stop the rough and tumble. And play where you have some freedom. I would say, as an educator and professional educator, you don't actually want those adjectives in the middle. There's no way you want a child to be lost or completely disappear from sight. But being slightly outside, slightly at a distance, having a bit of sense of freedom, like this young man in this photo, brilliant and perfect. And a lot of children want to explore that slight feeling of isolation and independence, which we often get outside, because often we've got a slightly bigger space outside. These are simple definitions that I use when I'm talking to children and adults about benefit risk assessment. And these come from when I used to work for a conservation organisation. They're the definitions that the Trust for Conservation uses. So a hazard is something with potential to cause harm. So stick, jaggy leaves would probably be the hazard there. Then the risk is the end result or the outcome of that hazard. My pet hate when I'm supporting people writing their risk assessments is when they write risks in the hazard column and hazards in the risk column. So weather, we've always got that on our risk assessments when we're doing outdoor stuff, because it's always there. Weather is the hazard, and the risk is what happens from the weather. So we might get windburn, we might get sunburn, we might get soaking wet, we might get hypothermia. So from any one hazard, we will often get a range of risks. So I feel it's quite healthy to have on our risk assessments 2 columns rather than just 1 column, and making sure we're not getting these mixed up. Often alongside risk, the thing that might happen, we might consider how widespread that risk is. So if we're indoors and working with electricity and plugs, it's very close. We've got to be really close to that plug, and maybe have a wet hand for it to be a problem. Whereas if we're outside and it's a really icy day, all that hideous soft play surfacing that causes compound fractures is quite risky. So that whole area, whereas if we go on the grass, we'll be perfectly fine. So how widespread that risk is often something we consider when we're looking at the risk. Sometimes we might think of the probability of something happening, and we definitely would often consider whom is at risk, all of us, just the children, bystanders, etc. So yeah, and then finally, the precaution that we might be taking. So that is often an action, information, or something we use, or a skill we've developed to be able to reduce the risk to an appropriate level that we feel is right. So old school risk assessing, because I'm now talking about benefit risk assessment, or some people call risk benefit assessment. I like to have benefit first. This is mainly because I've been doing this for 30 years. And what I've found over the years is often people look at a risk assessment and the first column is all the ways we're going to die. And everyone goes, oh my goodness, this is an absolute nightmare. I'm definitely not going to do that because look at all that horrible stuff. Whereas if we have a lovely column, usually a box at the top going, look at these amazing benefits that we're going to get from this. And then these are the hazards, things that could happen to us. And this is what could go on. But this is how we're going to stay safe. And you've got a big, lovely precautions box there. So old school risk assessment was eliminate everything that was dangerous, which is deadly boring because there'll be nothing in the playground because you could fall over that, you could trip on that. Absolute nightmare. So nowadays, hopefully, we've switched things around a little bit. And if we have an incredibly stark, boring playground with nothing in it, there's going to be no learning going on there. So we might well increase risk. So we might bring some tires to setting, or a ball that we might fall over, but we can push it backwards and forwards. We might have something we can sit on and maybe climb on top of. So that would increase risk slightly, but it's going to increase learning. And it's really important that we get the balance right between the benefit and the negative side of things. So if we're going to a wood, there's no need to increase risk because there's already loads of stuff going on there. But if it's a boring environment, we might bring something in which may increase risk. Once we've got something that we feel appropriate, the next thing we might do as a precaution is we might wear PPE, protective equipment. For me, that's a glove like these guys are doing here. A glove on the hand that we're not holding the tool with, if we're using tools, because we've got a handle for that hand. That's why it's called a handle. It's quite handy. But this one, the saw might jump, so we need a glove on this one. Sorry, I'm left-handed. If you're right-handed, you'd have a glove on that hand. And any other protective equipment, which is usually in the outdoors, the right clothes for the right weather that we've got that day. Then we need to give information. Sometimes we often have a combination of these precautions. So watch out, that bit's sharp. Let's keep our hand on the handle, usually quite handy. And we train people how to use these things correctly and monitor from a distance or close up, depending on life experience. Sometimes we might guard or segregate and say, this is going to be the tool working area. I'm just going to cordon this area off. We're not having the bikes or crazy things going on here because we're working with tools. Or if you go to the woods or you've got large trees, maybe you notice there's a wee hanging branch. So you might cordon that off till you can get a tree surgeon in, or maybe you can get it with a long saw. So sometimes we would guard or segregate from certain things in our outdoor space. And then occasionally we might eliminate something like hanging branches, dead wood, all that sort of thing. And then we've got the paperwork. Okay, so I'm not going to go into this because this is a whole massive training course. So we have policies, which many of us will already have in place. I tend to use protocols or standard operating procedures. It saves you writing everything out all the time in the precautions column, because anytime you get a tool, you just say, see the tool protocol, see the tree priming protocol, see the cooking protocol. So you just got all that information in there as to how I'm going to go about doing it. And this is the precaution I'm going to take. And then for me, I personally will have site benefit risk assessments for the different places I take children. And I will have experience benefit risk assessments as well. But from my experience, and I've been doing this a long time, I've never met a child in my life that said, hold on, just before we go and do that, can I read your documentation on that? Doesn't keep children safe. So we are required to do it by law, and people that manage us want us to have gone through the process of thinking about the hazards, the associated risks, and the precautions that are out there. But what actually keeps children safe is 3 magic questions. And these are the questions I often ask children all the time. If we've done this a lot, so if I've used something regularly, if I've had this experience all the time, I can probably skip the first one because we know what's good about doing this. But sometimes when I come into a setting and I don't know everybody, I'll say, well, what's good about going outside? What's good about going out into the playground there? And then we can list those, we can put them into our lovely big box, the benefits of what's being outside. Next thing is, well, what do we need to be careful of? So most children will talk in the end result and they'll say, I might bump myself on that thing. They won't say protruding objects or height. They'll probably say falling. So you'll probably get a combination of those two, and then you can split it up and stick it in the right columns on your risk assessment. And then finally, well, how do we stay safe? Usually when I'm doing this with children, we'll say, well, what do you need to be careful of? And then when they point something out, I'll immediately solve that problem, because we want children to be reassured. So nowadays we have 2 sorts of children. And unfortunately, we've got a growing percentage that are the first sort, which are slightly nervous, slightly concerned individuals. Maybe they don't spend a great deal of time outside, and we want to spend more outside, but I'm a bit worried about going out there. So when you do these questions, that reassures the slightly worried people. They now know the Gruffalo is not going to be there, just a very large mouse that's made out of cardboard. So we talk about that. And then for the children that are adventurous, love to push boundaries a little bit, of which we also have, that will rein them in, because what we then do is we agree, well, this is something we need to be careful of, but this is how we're going to stay safe. And then as a team, that's what we're going to do. We've all agreed this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to stay safe. We'll put my hand on the handle, and they always need to be able to see an adult. We're going to stay in this space today. And then from what I find when I do this discussion with children, and I do this from very young, Often I'll just talk it through if we aren't able to vocalize the different things, and I'll point things out that we might want to be careful of, but how we're going to stay safe with that. And then what happens is you haven't got one adult trying to keep everybody safe, because one of children's favorite things to do is tell tales on other children. So then you've got everybody watching everybody, and usually a child will see it before you and go, he's not, and by the time you've got to not, he's gone and put his glove on, or he's got his hands on the tree properly rather than hanging by one hand, because we've said 3 points of contact: 2 hands, 1 foot, 2 feet, 1 hand, off we go. Okay, so for me, this makes my life so much easier, and it's one of the most important things I think we should do with children, is get them involved in the risk assessment, not just have pointless pieces of paper we check every 3 months, but get them chatting about it and how we're all going to stay safe, and that makes your outdoor space a lovely learning environment. So yeah, whirlwind tour, sorry about that. Oh, we're all right for time. So thanks very much. If you want any help, then please feel free to contact me. The sorts of stuff I do. So I do coaching, so I come in and work with staff and children. I do online stuff like this that we've just done, but for a longer period of time, or face-to-face. And I also deliver qualifications like Forest School, Learning Beyond the Classroom, things like that. This is my website. And the reason I talk about that website is I don't think anyone's created anything new pretty much anymore. It's all recycled, all reinvented. I've been doing this for a very long time. People say, oh, look at this brand new thing that I've come up with. And I go, oh, I've seen that before. So on my website, there's an ideas section you can click on to get more ideas. And usually when you go straight into it, it's got a bit of a blog as to what I've been up to recently. And you can feel free to take ideas from that. You're more than welcome. If you've got a specific question and we don't answer it just now, that's my email. So you can drop me an email, and I'll try and help you out.